Well, there comes a little moment when we can get back to this work. And as for the little things to show you now, work has gotten done so far, and I'd say it probably gets to be a little time when we can start adding some yellow to the sleeve cuffs. So that is the part that at this moment we are going to take care of now. So you see, this is where we're going to begin this time. Take the short little brush, the thin brush, and kind of take along a little work to go into the Santa Claus and make it so it's going to shine its way to us, make us see the light of day. I tell you that these little scraps are making their way along with the work that we put into it. I'd say with this little bit of work, maybe it would be good if we just try to take it a little slower, try to do just maybe one side at a time with each. And so that's how we've come along with this little time around. And we've just made a little sleeve this way, so we got it like this. And we are going to do practically the very same step with the other one, make it so we kind of work along the lines and take it so we do the work just the way it needs to be done. And I'd say we're going to make this video short to begin with, but I'd say after we paint these sleeve cuffs here on each side, we're going to give them a moment to dry here and perhaps be back on to paint the sleeve cuff on the other side of each. So that's how we got it done on this side here. I will say that it might be a good moment just to kind of bring this little video to a stopping place right now, come back on after these dry, and come back and do the other cuff. And as for a while ago, I showed you all how I painted one side of the cuff on one side, so I'm going to work on the little cuff that is on the other side of each Ukrainian Santa as well. Try to kind of get the good little detail in and see how it's going to make its way go. And so as of now, it's going to be a little work. We're going to do it here and see how we do it is just what's going to matter the most. So I'd say it's just the little lines we put in here, and so while we're at it, I think it's all good, and we finally got the other sleeve cuff painted as well. We're going to try to apply the same little thing to this other cuff here. We're going to try to put the extra work into him that we need to make sure he kind of comes out as good as he needs to be, and so make it to where he's going to be the great Ukrainian Santa that we need him to be. And so finally we get a little work done here, and as I'd like to mention, there's probably a little place where a little bit of wood that needed to come out when it was carved didn't. So I'd say we can take that out. That ought to try to kind of even things up for us a little bit. And so that's how he's going to be when we get him all done, and put in a little bit of extra work to give him a little extra cuff in his sleeve. And so that's what he's going to come down to here. And we'll probably get a chance to put in a little brown on the bag on the inside where it needs to be. And we've gotten this little bit of work taken care of here. It's going to come out in the end so good and fine and make us all see a little light in our days, I say. And for this moment, decided I might kind of cut things off a little bit here and try to take care of some little places that probably need a little work done in them. Well, little stories to tell, and during this moment, taking a little break from painting, I went down to the gym just down the street from my house to exercise. It's a 24/7 gym where during non-staffed hours you get in with a badge that you scan outside, and just so happened that for quite a long story reasons, even during open hours, my badge has never been able to scan outside, so had to go inside the door and scan it at the service desk to get in. And right now it was a non-staffed hour and closed, and so it just so happened even with my badge I couldn't get in. So that kind of tells you what's going on there for sure. So I'm going to be going in tomorrow, getting that taken care of. But I do think at this point we're going to get down to the final part of this video, these videos about the painting of the Ukrainian Santas. There's a certain step I'm going to have to do on my own away from the camera when I get a chance, not in front of the camera, because it's a much harder thing to do that will require a lot of concentration. But these will be up on social media for you to see after everything is done. So, and that will be the eyes. Painting in the eyes is one of the hardest things to do. So I'm going to need a little bit of my own space to do that in, and kind of be able to do it in a way that I won't have any distractions. So here is just a little bit more about how the way is going to work. And for this time we're going to get out the lighter shade of blue again, and we're going to paint the coat. So as you see, or as I tell you, I want you to see, this is how it's going to be. You see how it's kind of still little plain on the back. We're going to paint that coat line in there like this, just the way I've done it. And so that's how the work is going to be. See how I've started it there? We're going to do a little working later on to try to get down to it a little bit more and take care of little things, and see how with all this stuff it's all going to be a little time and bit of work in our hands to take care of all together. But it's going to be the work that we do and make itself so it all is going to be also good in the end. And see how it's going to be when we get done with the whole thing, and how it's going to turn out, you know, and how it's going to be when it all works out itself out down to the limit and all things. And so we're going to take care of these little things here the best we know how, the best way we can, and see how it is all going to turn out for us when we all get it done. And like I say, you know, there's many versions of old Saint Nick. And, you know, there was Sinterklaas of Netherlands before there was Santa Claus in the traditional way. And there were so many ways that the name was translated, you know, that Saint Nicholas sounds almost like Santa Claus. So it's like you say his name real fast and you'll notice the similarity. And there were so many translations of the name over the years that made it come up that were finally translated to Come Out Santa Claus. So there was all this stuff about how names change and traditions changed. Been watching some videos on YouTube about Saint Nicholas, or as we call him, Father Nicholas, and he was just a hero in the 4th century, sometime in the 300s AD, and how that he was just known for all his good deeds, all the work he did, and all the giving and ways he had of things, sweet spirits and stuff. So that's what it all comes down to us saying in the end when we see a little work done in our path. And I'd say that there were so many things to base little characters on over days, and so this was one. It took place so many years ago, but there was a book called by Walter Wangerin called Early Saints of God that introduced me to Father Nicholas, and I probably knew for some time before I read that book that there had once been a priest known as Saint Nicholas or Father Nicholas that Santa Claus was based on, but it just so happened over years when I read the Walter Wangerin book, I was a little more introduced to him, learned a little bit more about him, learned a little bit more about traditional tales and how little stories came up, and how that stories were always told by tradition and told us a lot of things about him and all the things he meant to us in tradition and in the world, and how that it was like even in churches, that there was a song I wrote about him. I played it on my guitar and sang it to my relatives, but it was not a song that I really sang in church except for one particular time when we were just having like a Christmas play and having a Christmas skit that had different parts performed by different adults and children, and when it came down to it, I just finally decided to add in that song, play it and sing it, and see how it really meant something to my audience there, and how people really enjoyed hearing and learning the song and learning about the old man. And I say he just did a lot of wonderful good deeds, and there's been stories about him that have been told by traditions in different versions and different ways. And so I think I've heard Walter Wangerin's story about him and thought I liked that the best. And he tells us about how it was for him as a kid with his father in his pipe, and how he could sense the warmth of his father's pipe smoking and smell the tobacco while he was being told a story as a kid. And so that was how we learned a little bit more about him and the things he knew about growing up and as a kid and all. And now I'd like to say I have finally finished up painting up the coats on these. Most of all the painting that's needed to be done has been done, and finally there's little more stories I'll tell you. Always enjoyed hearing stories about those saints, and I'll tell you all, I mean, I still have Baptist traditions, I still have Baptist beliefs, but I tell you, there's been a few times I've shopped in the Catholic bookstores just to kind of get historical information about some of these people I wanted to learn about, and it was all good. It was all good for my learning. I always enjoyed reading this stuff, and always enjoyed learning what other people believed, what other people taught, and what other traditions have told us, and how that there is so much in life we learn from books. It may not be exactly what we believe, but it can always have a way of coming to us and teaching us new good things. I do think there's a place or two where the blue on the coat got a little smudged out on the yellow sleeve or on the white hair, but I do think that's going to be something that's going to have to be done a little separate from the video after it dries. So I think for now that this is going to be the final part of the series about painting the Ukrainian Santa Clauses, and that's what I'd like to share. You've seen his goodie sack, his little wand, and the star, and everything he had to show and all that he had. And He was always good helping kids get away, helping them get all their needs met. And presents are something else, you know. Presents started with Father Nicholas, but I'd say the thing of it is I'll tell you another little story that it just so happened that Christmas was celebrated as a mass holiday at first. It wasn't originally the Santa Claus holiday, but it just so happened that St. Nicholas or Father Nicholas died on December 6th of a certain year, and so it just so happened that December 6th became the day of the Feast of St. Nicholas, and since the Feast of St. Nicholas and Christmas were both in the same month, that somebody decided to put them together and tradition them together, and so that is how Christmas became associated with St. Nicholas and Santa Claus. They were two separate holidays at first, but somebody decided to put them together, and it became a tradition to put them together. But once it comes down to it, we just need to remember the real meaning that Jesus Christ was born as the Savior of the earth. We don't know what day on the calendar Jesus was really born into this world, and there is no record of that, but we know that it was given by man that we celebrated on the 25th of December. And there is a certain story that kind of takes place in pagan history that about somebody who was converted to Christianity on that day that has to do with that. And I tell you, preachers, like to really focus on that and talk about how pagan they think it is to celebrate it, but I don't focus on that, because, it's like they do that with Easter, and to that matter, if we were going to do it with those holidays, we could do it with the days of the week, because every day of the week is named after a pagan god, to that matter. So I'd say that in this life, I just have so much to share because I know so much and have learned so much, but as for now, it's time to end this video and say take care and happy holidays.